Welcome to the Database Release Automation DevOps Columbia meetup. Today we have Mike Delgado, the Vice President of DBmaestro, a USA-based DevSecOps solution provider. As a senior executive with more than 30 years of experience, his leadership and contributions at companies such as General Electric, Sony, British Telecom, Microsoft, Oracle, and Intel provides an excellent background and insight needed as part of the executive team at DBmaestro. In addition, Delgado participates in technology forums and advisory boards, presenting on technology topics in data warehousing, DevSecOps, analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. We're super excited to learn about the thoughts on database release automation tonight. So Mike, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to come on out and spend a little bit of time with you, and my appreciation you taking the time to come spend some time with me and the team. Today's session, we're going to talk about DevOps for databases. For some people, very, very exciting topic. Some other people might not think as exciting as I do, or we do, but it is very, very exciting, and it's very, very empowering, the information that I'm going to share with you today, and how you can leverage it. I've got several hundred slides. I'll try to get through them as quickly as possible. There will be an opportunity towards the end to do any Q&A. And we'll have some facilitation to be able to do that. But if there's any burning questions that we need to try to respond to during the session, please go hit the chat, and the team will help facilitate getting that Q&A done. So to kind of kick it off, some of you might have heard about DORA. And DORA has been around for a while. And basically its birth is to analyze the impact of DevOps solutions, whether it be on the app side or the database side, etc. And it has been embraced by some of the top technology companies in the world. One of them being Google, in essence, has made it part of their DNA. If you've never heard about DORA, go ahead and Google it and read up on it. At the end of the day, it's really a measurement and reporting with KPIs to measure yourself on how well your DevOps operations and systems and solutions are positively or negatively impacting your organization. At DBmaestro, we've adopted the DORA methodology and philosophy as part of our key reporting and analytics capabilities to demonstrate the value, the ROI, the impact that our customers get when implementing DevSecOps for databases in their enterprise. So while DORA makes things transparent of the impact of the of database automation, it really starts to become very, very clear. The answer is clear. It's all about automation. And it's not about, hey, do I put a robot in place to replace a person? No, it's about these guardrails, these mechanisms, these streamlined, switches that do all the flashing lights and show us that the train going down the track has green all the way. So that express train can go from point A to point B unhindered, yet within the guardrails to operate it safely and get its passengers to its destination. So whether it's version control, security, this continuous integration and delivery, a dry run process, a pre-check, while everything is documented, governed with corporate policy under industry regulations or government regulations, this is what automation does for you when properly and appropriately implemented within the enterprise. So how do we know that? Well, you start to talk to people, right? What are you doing in your business? What keeps you awake at night? What allows you to sleep at night, right? who's banging on your door and asking you what happened or what if. So the oldest rule in the book is to go do some surveys, right? And interesting enough, and even some of the most sophisticated enterprises today, when you do these surveys, would come back and say, well, they kind of scratch their heads and they say, we have no release automation, for our applications. Nevertheless, our databases. Some of our application releases are automated, or all of them are automated. So there's a total spectrum of degree of maturity when it comes to DevOps. Those organizations that have put their toe in the water and start seeing the benefits quickly start accelerating, deploying it throughout the enterprise to ensure that it's maximizing the benefits that DevOps gives to the enterprise. So there's going to be a full spectrum, and whether you're SMB, small, medium business, to enterprise, large Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies, every single type of organization in every stage of their maturity can extract value and benefit. So what does it mean? I love it when I go talk to a governmental entity, let's say the Federal Aviation Administration, or the Federal Reserve Bank in the US, or we talk to some of the top insurers or top financial services companies, manufacturers, whether they be, automotive manufacturing or high-tech manufacturing. And many times I will get feedback that says, no, we have DevOps. We do DevOps for our application. Okay, that's great. Great step. That's all we need. I get it. Well, the application makes sense. Why? We touch and feel the application. It is that appealing aspect of technology. It's that usability of technology that makes it great to have a DevOps solution for your application. You got to have it, because if the app doesn't work, you know what? Nothing's happening, right? But, with a little bit of age and background, you actually learned, I have learned throughout time, that at the end of the day, what drives the application and is the king and rules is the data. What's the value of an application without any data empowering it to give you an insight, as an example? So those enterprises that have deployed full stack DevOps for application in the enterprise, they're roughly 80–90% there. Database automation is that last mile, that last 20%, that gap that needs to be completed so that you can say, hey, my infrastructure and policies can give me truly 99.999%, or even better yet, 100% resilience and performance for my customers, my suppliers, my ecosystem, my staff. So that missing component, DevOps for the database side, that's that 20% that's missing. And again, this is surveying many marketplaces, SMB, enterprise, government, etc. The full mix is there of maturity. So those of us in IT, many of us have joined the Thursday night party. Hey, I've got an upgrade. It's going out the door. There's a release. You don't want to be part of that party if it lingers on to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, come Monday, the morning after of that release, and disaster of not having a DevOps solution for the enterprise in place. You're fatigued, you're frustrated, and the guns are still pointing at you because now it's Monday morning. It's time to perform. Everybody needs access to their applications and data to start their Monday and do their jobs. So being invited to that Thursday night release party, usually bad pizza. You don't want to be there. You want to be able to be in a situation where you have automation, you have the guardrails in place, you've got the security and compliance to comfortably and securely, with the most mitigated risk possible, release those updates. Where are some of the biggest issues that company experience when they lack DevOps automation in their process? Configuration drifts. It's the highest percentage. It's most common. You have multiple IT teams building out different disparate components, and having a drift is an inherent risk. It's more the fact of happening than the exception. Accidental overdrive, same thing, multiple teams. You're doing sprints, you have sprint 1 through 6. They're not all in equal distance of completion. And you have some developers and coders that might override some code that was already released out within their DevOps process. Obviously, in-team conflicts, partial updates, undocumented hotfix. I remember one company, as I was doing discovery, sharing, yeah, when we do have problems, and we do have developers that go directly into prod, release some code, a problem occurs. Instead of diagnosing what actually happened, the remedy was do another hotfix. Bring that system back up, because we're a bank and we can't issue mortgages out or loans out, and that's our business. We need that database. We need that application back up and running. Just do another hotfix. Forget about what happened. Just fix it. Invalid code, wrong script, partial code, all symptoms that I can guarantee you 99.99% of organizations have experienced at some time in their life cycle, from that infancy to extremely mature. And again, doesn't matter the size. So, day in the life of a database change. And people say, no, my environment's unique. Well, it probably is. Or no, it's plain Jane vanilla. It's pretty simple. Well, let's look to see how simple it is. This is real life. This was a client of ours that, again, in that discovery and mapping out their DevOps journey. What do you got? All right, well, I got 220 applications that are feeding off these databases. Okay, great. Is it a straight line to release code? No, it isn't. These are the different hops, different teams. We've got in-house, we got outsourced, we have multiple geographies, etc. So it's not a straight line, but we know the beginning, we know the end. Great. Oh, but by the way, we have 4 environments per application. So let's just say I've got dev, I've got test, I've got UAT, and I've got prod. Got 4 environments. Okay, well, now you're managing, in total, 220 applications, 4 environments. You got 880 environments that you're managing. Okay, starting to get messy. How many changes to your database do you make a year? Well, about almost 29,000. Gotcha. So you need to do 29,000 releases in over 800, almost 900 environments for 220 applications. Clearly not a straight line. Oh, and by the way, yeah, I've got 2,500 plus members in the dev team. I got 116 DBAs, another 1,900 developers, 525 architects in 18 locations in 5 different zones. It's chaos. Let's roll back a bad release of code. Okay, which line do I follow to roll back on that code? It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. Do companies survive? Absolutely. Most do. Is it painful? Extremely so. Do people get fired over this stuff? Absolutely. The point is, how do I make it better? This is my chaos. This is my daily chaos every day. How can it be better? I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Okay. Well, there's some philosophies that say, hey, you need to do things fast. And if you're not breaking things, you're not doing your best. Okay, got it. So if you're on the trading floor of the stock exchange and you've got developers changing automated trading codes on the fly as fast as they can, make a mistake and shut down the exchange, I don't think that's a career-making move. So what does it mean? All these companies have something in common. and there's brands here. I mean, these are household brands, whether it be AT&T or Mickey D's. Rogers is the AT&T version of Canada. And the little small icon that you see there, that is actually the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration. What do they all have in common? They all claim to have 99.99% uptime. They all claim that. Their IT organization, all their stats, all their KPIs, that's our uptime. That's great. Well, in the not so distant past, AT&T took a hit, 12-hour hit on their infrastructure. $140 million was their cost, their revenue cost, their internal cost for that downtime. It impacted 1.7 million subscribers on their cell networks. And this is the tangible side, the 140 million. It's not the intangible side where the consumer, potentially myself, says, I'm done with AT&T. I'm going to Verizon now. Can't even measure what that churn looks like from a client base because of a 12-hour outage. Mickey D's, 100 million, 9,000 stores impacted, 1 hour. This is real stuff. These aren't my numbers. Go look it up. Rogers, 142 million. FAA, 800 million. What caused this? In essence, a developer dropped a table and a database that sits in every U.S. airport in the U.S. that regulates fly, no fly. That drop table brought down the database, shut down all the airports. FAA had to shut it down. Their ecosystem and everybody involved in aviation, while there was a ground stop of flights, 800 million bucks. But that's not the best one. They don't get the prize. Knight actually gets the prize. Electronic trading firm on NASDAQ. Change occurred, ungoverned, outside of policy, bad code, bunch of automatic trading started to occur. Their impact, $7 billion. They don't exist anymore. They went bankrupt. They're gone. Based on a change, an unregulated, unautomated, an unguided, or policy-driven change. Scary stuff. $1 million can bring a $1 million impact can bring an SMB to their knees. $100 million impact is an impact to any size organization. This is what DevOps for database eliminates. The main objective is really one, and you'll have technologists tell you a bunch of stuff. It's one thing. Never let bad code hit production. That's all you need to accomplish. Never let bad code hit production, and you would not have these impacts. Oh, well, moving slow will solve that. Well, not really. As my friend here has learned, moving slow is just as bad as moving too fast. You gotta have that medium. You gotta operate at the right speed that not only you dictate, but also your customers. Think about a retailer, an online retailer of high-tech components that sells to corporations. All right, I need to buy 1,000 mice for my employees. Well, let me go to a reseller of high-tech components. Let me go to Amazon. Oh, Amazon's price for the same mouse is cheaper. Well, I need to be able to update all of my websites, all of my price points, inform all my resellers, distributors, my ecosystem that I'm dropping a price to be competitive in the marketplace so I can ensure I'm getting my corporate orders. You can't do that just in a hot fix. You could do it and take the risk of bringing down a production database because something went wrong. So too fast, too slow, they're both equivalent. If they're not following DevOps automation, you're at risk of impacting your organization. So inside, and again, some of this is philosophical, but inside of us, there's two wolves. You got the one that wants to go fast and break things, and the one that wants to go slow, but also breaks things. Don't break the database. So yes, move fast as possible and deploy with the highest quality, with the highest governance that you possibly can. The way you do that is with DevSecOps. DBmaestro provides these solutions. So move fast and deploy with quality. Okay, so how? from theory to practice. So we're going to talk about a checklist of things to come, because this is not theory. This is real stuff that is being deployed day in and day out. It's not easy. I don't want to say it's you open a black box and it's magic that occurs. There's process, there's procedure, there's governance. Many organizations, there's cultural change. And if it's anything tough to do in an enterprise, is implement cultural change. So moving faster without breaking the database. Okay. Working according to DevOps best practices. Check it. Got to be there. Creating a repeatable process. Think about that conveyor line that's going through the Amazon warehouse, right? They got a pretty good system of stuffing the box. You hit buy on your cart, that initiates some automation, that now you go into fulfillment. It's in the warehouse. The box comes on out on the conveyor belt, and now stuff gets put into this box. Some with some logic positioning and some not. Just get it in the box, right? But get it right. Whatever's repeatable, that's the best practice. Duplicate it as much as you possibly can. It's already vetted. Balancing the workload. When do I do this, right? Do I do it on a Monday morning when everybody's starting their work week on one of the busiest weeks of the year? No, you don't. Putting security policies in place as part of the process. You know, we talk about security as this lock and key. It's actually more than that. You know, you've got external threats, you've got internal threats, you've got threats within process and procedure. Security has to get down to the role. You know, I like to say in Excel, there are times when I lock down a cell, right? We've all seen it in those templates that are forms. You lock down the cell when appropriate. Controlling who authorizes to make the change. Again, that's governance. Who has the authority to approve or not to approve? Who has the authority to move the box forward or press start on the conveyor belt? Controlling what changes are allowed. So it's not just that you can make a change, is what can you change? Yes, you could change from red to blue, but you can't change from 2 to 3. Testing and more testing before going live. That should be paramount, and that's like should be IT 101. But I'll tell you, many organizations that I talk to, and we start looking at their processes. How do you release this code? How do you do this update? And they go, oh, I have a developer go to prod, you know, with a Snowflake database and just make the change right there. Really? So you don't test it? You don't make a rollback script first before you implement into prod? No, we go right there. Disaster. Testing, and more testing. Document everything. So there was an organization that was just being acquired by a very large investment group here in the US. Out of Omaha was the investment group. And they were buying a very, very large retailer in petrochemical. And throughout the due diligence of the economics and the operation and all that kind of stuff, they had a third-party auditor come and do that audit. And it was Deloitte. And in that process, they came on back and said, hey, you failed your audit. Well, what happened? Your DevOps process is not in compliance with Sarbanes-Oxley. What do you mean? You have to be compliant in SOX, and based on your changes to your databases, you're not in compliance. So it's not just a technology component. There's regulations out there. There's governance that you need to align to ensure that your processes and procedures are in alignment with whatever regulation is mandated in your industry. Everybody talks about HIPAA and healthcare. It's not just HIPAA. It's a ton of stuff. It's not just data privacy and security. How your database is being updated that have all this, you know, personal health information in it, and who has access to that. All part of the process and that conveyor belt of DevOps. Okay, some DevOps best practices. Build only once, deploy many times. Again, if that code is good, if that process is good, replicate it. Deploy the same way to all environments, same rules, same governance, right? State versus migration deployment. There's a big difference there. You can have both deployed in your enterprise, in your processes. It's what's best fits for those updates. Embedded risk. What are they? Identify them, mitigate them, automate, automate, automate. And again, document, document, document. DORA is based on documentation. If you can't document your process and capture everything, all that change management, how do you know you're doing a good job? How can you manage KPIs if it's bad data or no data? So in the CI, dry runs. Before we started this presentation today, we all connected and made sure the laptops were working and the presentation was on the screen and the audio worked. It's kind of a dry run. On Broadway, what did I do? Dress rehearsal. This is not something new, guys. Dry run's been around forever, since the beginning of time. We just got to implement it in our IT practices and not forget about the database. We did it on the app side. Remember, we're 80% there. Last mile, database, last 20%. Security and policies. Again, it has to be built into the process, has to be done early. It's part of the discovery, it's part of the plan. You got to nail it down. If it hasn't been done, you stop. What's our policy and procedure? Does our policy and procedure align with any regulations? Can we implement? Got to do it up front. And simple things. Can you have a developer on an outsourced team drop a table? Hell no. We don't want to bring down all the airports in the US with no fly, ground stop. Who should be granted access? Who should authorize a release or through its stages approve those releases? When is a valid time slot for production to update, right? All of these things, this is all part of the discovery, planning, and implementation. Now, I'm not talking about years of planning and design and development. I'm not even talking about months and months. It could take several weeks. It can take a few months. You take the best practices of the organization today and you apply it to your IT DevOps process. Roles and responsibilities, the enforcement rules. Again, who's allowed to say what? Who's able to do an override? Who's able to take the risk of bad code being pushed into production? Compliance and traceability. Now, this is something that at DBmaestro, very, very serious, very large governmental entities, regulated companies are forced, they don't necessarily want to do it, but they have to do it to stay in business. So who created the code? What was the change? Why was it changed? You know, you got a ticket to change something. Okay, who did it? Why? Who, what, where, when? What, you know, who packaged it for release? Who clicked the go button? All of these are part of the process. And your DevOps solution and platform have to have these capabilities. If they don't, that 20% that you're trying to resolve, that gap, that last mile, you might think you're doing it, but you haven't done it. Got to have all these capabilities in the solution somehow, some way. What does it mean? There's four core components in the DevSecOps world. Really starts at the source control side. Hey, I'm building code, I'm writing scripts, etc. It starts with the developer once they've got their orders, right? Their ticket that opens the request. Continuous integration and continuous delivery. That's that pipeline management of moving that code, that script that's being packaged in that box and moving it through the conveyor belt with the appropriate guardrails and policy to get that box stuffed, get the right label with the right address and destination point, so I could wake up in the morning and have my delivery and enjoy my caramel popcorn that I ordered last night. That's what this is all about. So in the DevOps universe, and this is a slide that I use in many times, kind of portraying where where does DBmaestro fit in this big, vast universe? And on the top white bar you see on the top, you'll probably see some companies and applications that you're very familiar with. They're very common in many different organizations globally. So whether it be the GitLabs or the GitHubs or the Bitbuckets or Jira, Jenkins, Azure DevOps up in the cloud, organizations have this in some shape or form. The very unmature organizations will have nothing that are gearing towards that or something homegrown, but there's something that's doing it, right? And again, those are some of the brand marquees that we come across day in and day out. On the bottom white bar are the platforms. Some people take these platforms very, very religious. Like, there are, SAP shops, there's Oracle shops that they'll do nothing else, right? And there are those that have ton of legacy, whether it be DB2, et cetera, that, it works. We have it, we depend on it. Our core applications work off of these databases for a very long time. We do need to have other databases to do other stuff as our enterprise grows. So they all need to be harmonious in this universe. They all have their space, their spinning space in this DevOps universe. Where does DBmaestro fit? We put ourselves in the middle. I wouldn't say we're the sun, but we put ourselves in the middle of that because from the orchestrators up top, right, that are getting these orders from the business to IT to a developer that now is writing code and starting that conveyor belt on the left-hand side in dev, source control, and now packaging that box in the pipeline as it's moving across from SIT to user acceptance to pre-prod, prod. We are those guardrails. We are that security component. We are those policies. Everything that's needed to move that code from dev to prod and ensure, remember the goal, never bad code into production is what we do. And that's why we put ourselves in the center of the universe. This is where I live every day, and I enjoy myself and collaborate and work with that top of the universe, the Gits and the Bits and the Jira and the Jenkins, which by the way are all native to DBmaestro. There's no coding integration that you need to do from your world that you've established with your best practices to invite me in to do this center part. Our objective is not to be disruptive to your organization. DBmaestro is adaptable to your infrastructure, to your tools, your technology, your platforms, and be natively sit between these areas so that you can implement, again, like I said, not in years and not in months and months and months, but weeks, maybe months, depending how big things are and how complex or how mature. Because one of the things that we deliver are those best practices. Multiple decades of DBmaestro delivering DevOps for database. You develop those best practices. And those are some of the value components that we put on the table immediately. Source control, as you guys know, is where the action begins, right? At the developer, writing the scripts, writing the codes that are going to relate to all that schema and content changes and tracking. It's that front-end process that, from a DBmaestro perspective, by the way, many companies have source control tools and products that they use today. And I mean, having worked with developers for 30 years, it's kind of a cultural thing too. Don't touch my tools, right? This is what I work with day in and day out. Can I do this with using my own tools? Absolutely, you can. As long as it's governed, right? Follows the right policies and procedures, and allows you to start that conveyor belt into the CI/CD process. DBmaestro also has a source control component that obviously is native to us because it's built within our DevSecOps platform solution. The release automation component, quick little, snapshot of the UI. So unlike other tools that you might come across in the marketplace, DBmaestro offers a solution suite. It includes a UI for easy use, implementation, integration, and management. But here's the best thing that I've experienced at DBmaestro and his clients. Once things, again, build it once, replicate it many times, leverage what's good, get rid of what's bad. Once your DevSecOps platform is up and running, for all given purposes, you should never see DBmaestro. It's working behind the scenes. It's that muscle, it's that sentry out there moving the package from the beginning of the conveyor belt to the end of the conveyor belt, right? You're using the applications and tools that are native to you and your organization. So I mentioned GitLab, GitHub, etc. You'll live there. DBmaestro ultimately will end up behind the scenes, moving that code from dev to prod. Drift management and dry run. Key components. Again, we're going to go out and do the play tomorrow night's grand opening. What are we doing today? Dress rehearsal. Why isn't the same thing true for code? Why can't I have an environment that I do dry run? I'm implementing all my changes in this environment. What's the impact of prod? And not only is that important, what's my rollback script? If something were to go wrong, who knows? You know, a lightning bolt, right? You get a power glitch. I need to go back to the prior state. What's the typical response? Oh, okay, so reload a backup. Well, okay, when was that backup done? And what were the changes since that backup was created? You lose all of that, right? So not only do I want to do a dry run forward, I want to have my rollback script, right? I want to have my rollback ability and know in advance that it works, right? There's other intangible benefits that occur here. The shorter feedback loop. What is a short feedback loop? Pre-check, bad code, check code. Hey, code is highlighted. Go back to pre-check. Shorter loops. Many enterprises will start releasing through their pipelines before they get to production, and they come across a problem. Okay, they caught it, but from the time that the developer wrote that code to the time that they caught it could be days, if not weeks. And then in essence, it could literally take months to re-implement that code change because it took that much time to figure out what went wrong, who did it, why, and do it over again. I'm going to go a little bit faster because I don't want to cut short on time for any Q&A. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat. But we talked about these shorter feedback loops. What do we have available to us? There's a ton of AI out there. Well, DBmaestro incorporated in this technology some AI capabilities that not only will we tell you that there's some code because we did a pre-check or a dry run, but here's the AI recommendation on how to fix it. Shortening that feedback loop even faster and doing that from a best practices perspective. So there's an AI component available in the DBmaestro DevOps for database solution. I always come back to security, policy, and compliance. Why? You truly don't have DevOps. Most importantly, you truly don't have DevSecOps if you don't have the security, policy, and compliance capability. You got to have it. And it's got to be down to the individual and segregation of duties. What can this person do? Who are they? What are their permissions, right? At the end of the day, I always talk about never bad code goes to production. Well, how do I know that? Being able to capture all of those moving parts, all of that momentum, that conveyor belt, and delivery to me with my caramel popcorn, and be able to score it with real data. What happened? And make those KPIs and performance dashboards transparent to the organization on how to better itself. You might have, one R&D organization somewhere that for whatever reason is having some issues and their performance is not there, but we don't know it, right? Be able to identify that. Most importantly is never let bad code go into production? And how do I know and how I score myself that I'm doing a great job? So some takeaways. If anybody's interested in getting a white paper from DBmaestro on the playbook, just feel free to reach on out, drop an email, let the host know that you'd like to get that white paper, and I'm more than happy to send it on out. I hope the session was informative for you. There's a lot of content. I enjoyed with a passion. And if you share the same, reach on out, invite me to come on out and see if there's an opportunity to help you with your DevSecOps journey. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mike. And Stephanie, I think there's an issue. Are you double muted on the mic?
I'm double muted.
There we
I
go.
apologize. Thank you so much, Mike. That was awesome. Yeah, so was watching the chat. We had a couple things come up. First thing was about FedRAMP. How does that fit into DBmaestro's setup? Any opinions on
So,
that?
yeah, so people hear FedRAMP, they get scared, right? Because who's Big Brother? Actually, FedRAMP is pretty cool. It's an important federal initiative and requirement for their process of moving from on-prem to the cloud. And those vendors that are able to do that. I can proudly say that DBmaestro's DevOps platform has been part of FedRAMP initiatives and deployments from on-prem to in cloud. What I haven't done is gone through the certification process. The government agencies that use us have done that within themselves and gotten certified that they're in compliance using DBmaestro. My next step is to spend the next, year, 2 years using those agencies' success, saying that and going through the process of being certified under FedRAMP to complete it all. But I think it's a valid thing. And again, you need to be safe going up into the cloud, especially the feds. I don't want my tax records to be available to everybody.
Excellent point. We just had another question come in. What is drift and how do changes in prod get to lower environments?
Okay, how do changes in prod go into lower environments? So you start in the lower environments, right? So again, let's talk about that conveyor belt. And I had a slide up earlier that talked about dev and then test, and then there was a UAT there and a SIT. And again, you can have the smallest pipeline environment conveyor belt. You shouldn't have anything smaller than 3 environments: dev, test, prod. Some of our clients have as many as 12, 15 environments from development to prod. So it's that conveyor belt. You're moving from the lower environments in essence, and the connections are done in DBmaestro. So when you do an implementation, those environments and those sources are basically mapped out within DBmaestro, and the process to govern the movement of code all the way to production. And again, in alignment with security and governance. And security is not just internal. If you're using a cyber vault, a third party cyber vault of some sort, those technologies are integrated, like CyberArk as an example, or Secret Manager out of some of the cloud providers. Those are all vetted, integrated capabilities from DBmaestro.
Awesome, excellent. I was wondering, in the your deployments to prod are your cream of the crop. We want to be ready to go. How does DBmaestro help with our follow the sun type of environments where I've got, I'm AT&T, I got people everywhere. I can't just push out my update. I don't know if you could elaborate on how that fits in.
Yep. So okay, and so let's talk about AT&T a little bit. They've had some challenges. I shared a slide They had some challenges recently with Snowflake database deployment. I don't know all the details around it. I just know it was in the press. So when you are mapping out, you start with the application, right? So what is the application? And let's just say the application is new telephone numbers. Okay, so you customer acquisition, part of the customer acquisition is to allocate a phone number, right? That's an application that does that, and it has a data source of repository of inventoried phone numbers, right? So we need to do a change there. The organization that does that is located in New York. And but the actual people, developers that would be implementing that could be in India or Western Europe or South America. Let's just say they're in Mexico, right? We've got an outsourced DevOps development team out there. So that application, by definition, will have governance for that application and the rules and connectivity to the repositories and environments that are required to support a pipeline from dev to prod. So based on single sign-on credentials, right? Through, let's say, Active Directories, that individual who's going to write that code would have already been pre-governed as part of the team to be able to change the database for customer acquisition, new telephone numbers. So that's part of the mapping process for a rollout. So you got to really look at those applications. I think I shared a slide of what I call the ball of yarn, and that customer started out with 220 applications. Oh, okay. So is the process, are the teams, is the governance different for every application? Or where is the common denominator between these applications? You want to replicate what you can replicate. We talked about build once, replicate many times. Same methodology. Hopefully that makes sense. I would be very interested to talk to you, reach on out, and I can get more elaborate on how you do that in a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Another question came into chat. What are your thoughts on a service when deployed will make database schema changes, aka service embedded database migration tools?
I think I'm going to defer on that one. Reach out to me because I don't want to misspeak on it, and I'd rather have some of my bodyguards around me, my heavy tech guys, to give you a good answer on that. So I apologize. I'm going to put it in the parking lot, but definitely reach on out to me, and I'd love to engage in that conversation.
Great. That's awesome. So I guess if someone is watching this and they're having that oh snap moment of like, how do I start this journey today? How do I make my database automation better? Like, what's your advice for starting that journey?
So first of all, do some homework. All right. There's a lot of stuff out there. Do some homework. Also identify in your organization what is the highest risk or most critical application or databases that can't afford bad code, right? So I would recommend go hit our website, send me an email. I'll send you the playbook. Playbook helps with some of that. How do I get started, right? What do I should look at? How do I engage? Who should be the stakeholders involved in such a process? Just reach on out to us, reference this event, and I'll personally engage myself and have some of my team support me in those efforts. Learn as much as you can. Join these forums. It's not a one size fit all, and that's why DBmaestro doesn't sell licenses. We don't sell a tool. We sell a solution because there is a degree of coloring to that to a successful DevSecOps implementation that is personalized to the organization. Not every company, yes, we might have cyber vaults, but how they use and deploy those cyber vaults could be different from company to company. And that's where we do that personal touch. And I know there's a company out there that has that personal touch logo, but we really do it.
Great. Yeah, it sounds like a daunting journey, and I think it's a great mission you guys have. And database is very important to every application. I'm not sure that gets respected all the time.
I
Um,
agree. We're the least, and not the, well, I always got to be careful with my words. My New Yorker comes on out, right? But we're sometimes we're not the most glamorous application or IT part, right? In that whole IT infrastructure. Everybody really loves the apps, again, is what we touch and feel. But we are the engine. Without the database, those apps just don't work right.
Definitely a data-driven world.
Mhm.
Awesome. I want to open it up if there's any more questions. Awesome. Well,
Great.
Mike's information's on the screen. Thank you so much for the talk, Mike. This was great. We'll be sending out the recording and yeah, thank you so much. And we'll
I had a blast. Thank you so much as well.